First, I want to say happy Juneteenth to everyone. Thanks for coming out today, or tonight rather. I know Keith is really excited to be here. My name is Wally. Some of you guys know me, some of you guys don't. But Albert, I've been like kind of partnering with Albert to facilitate a lot of these conversations and Freedom First shows on Keith's behalf. And Albert and I've worked like pretty closely with Keith over the last, 2 years now? Wow, that's crazy. So this is kind of a 2-year anniversary. Actually, we're actually kind of coming up on it now, which is really cool. But I want to welcome you guys. And Keith is going to be calling in live. He's actually listening to everything I'm saying right now. So he'll be with us tonight, and all the performances will be done here live as well. So, and then we'll do a Q&A, and you guys will have an opportunity to ask him questions and things like that. Please, he's ready for them. So like, bring the questions that you have. I know he really wants to engage with you all. So we can start. Right.
Just so you know, we're going to start with the first tune of the album called Calling All Souls. We can introduce the tunes later, but that will be the first tune of the album. And by the way, you can also buy the album if you haven't done it yet. This is the first album in history where one of the artists participated from Death Row. And we also have here the book that Keith wrote.
Titled Condemned.
Yeah, how many years ago? Like 7, 8 years ago?
What was it, 2012? 2014? 2014. So
where he explains all his case.
Yeah.
What happened to him.
So if you haven't read it, there's copies back there. We can make arrangements for you to get one at the end of the show. I'm going to connect Keith now, and then we can start. Excuse me if this is a little janky at first. Keith, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. You got it?
When people typically think of an artist, what usually comes to mind is someone who uses their imagination to capture and convey reality as it is seen and felt. In the main, what we do or leave undone in the course of our everyday lives is viewed as insignificant, unless or until we are thrown into the crucible of adverse circumstances and forced to demand from self the strength and focus necessary to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. I recite these words on June the 20th, 2022, less than 2 years away from my proposed execution, which is scheduled to take place on November the 16th, 2023. In other words, I'm standing on the brink of my existence, staring directly into that terrifying darkness that awaits us all. It's a difficult dilemma to be in, I won't lie. But the only way to face it is to make it mean something. It is in this very strict sense of the word that I consider myself an artist. Someone who's trying to make a way out of no way. The music you are about to listen to comes out of the realm of the impossible. Something that, in reality, should not have been doable. Whether or not I am successful in stopping these people from killing me, you are right now listening to my last will and testament. The embodiment of everything I've endured, learned, and conquered. Because of the courage and vision of some very remarkable people who believed when there was no reason to believe, this project has come to fruition. My friend and brother, Albert Marques, who's accompanying me on the piano right now, is foremost among these fearless souls. On paper, he and I shouldn't have anything in common. After all, we speak different languages and come from two very different worlds where there exist barriers that aren't always easy to overcome. But music is a bridge, and all we need to do is open our hearts and minds to be able to comprehend the complexities that constitute our shared humanity. Ain't that right out there? For the past 3 decades, I've lived out my existence in the cell on Ohio's death row, trapped in the carceral silence of solitary confinement. For the uninitiated, this means I've spent the bulk of my life 23 hours a day inside a cage no larger than the average closet. How have I survived without losing my mind? Music. When I first arrived here almost 30 years ago, I was a deeply wounded and bitter person. And if it's true to say, as James Baldwin has said, that hate, which can destroy so much, never failed to destroy the one who hated, I was surely on my way to a definite undoing. That an innocent man could be thrown into the depths of hell is an unspeakable horror. One that stretches back to the agony and pain that attended the Middle Passage. Indeed, what I am going through is not unprecedented. It has been done before, a long time ago and recently. It took a fellow prisoner to point this out to me. An old man named Snoop who turned me on to the healing powers of music. It is to him that I owe my sanity. He gave me the means to sublimate my pain and the tools to reconstruct my mentality, which in turn allowed me to see and understand that what I'm caught up in is in fact the continuation of a centuries-long struggle against oppression and greed. John Coltrane was my introduction to improvisational music, the music most commonly known as jazz, and served as the entry point into the vast reservoir of resistance and accumulated wisdom that accompanied would-be slaves on their journey to the new land. Put in this proper perspective, this music is the blood-drenched document of man's inhumanity to man and the overcoming of it. John Coltrane's A Love Supreme should be seen in this light as the recapitulation of the fight to hold on to one's humanity. In the face of the unspeakable, unthinkable, one must not only speak and think clearly, but one must also strive to find the fortitude to live supremely. That's the moral of the story, folks. When heard separately, the crashing of a cymbal can be likened to the sound of a wave. The snare to that of a heartbeat. The bass line is the rising and setting of the sun. The piano is how the wind blows. And the horn is the blood-curdling scream of someone trapped inside a dream going mad. It is only when these polyrhythmic sounds abound and come together that the creator's voice can be heard. Everything is beautiful. Planted within the peerless plight that awaited my ancestors was a seed of hope, which was watered and cultivated by music. Through the lifting up of every voice came the singing, came the ringing of this glorious thing called freedom, which is love's true destiny. Indeed, love is the only freedom. Love is the only freedom. Love is the only freedom. We assert our true value when we persist. When, in spite of all and everything, we insist on the highest and best from ourselves and each other. This music is about trust and faith, about stepping out even when you can't see the stairs and believing that your foot will find something solid to stand on. Following your heart is the purest form of improvisation. Being true to that voice that calls you forward, and then doing with dignity and grace the thing that needs to be done. To change this system, to change the world, we must first change ourselves. That's what John Coltrane believed. It is to this that we are calling all souls. Calling all souls. Calling all souls. You know, in this country, most of us operate under the delusion that we live in the 21st century, that somehow, without actually doing the work, we have overcome our history. It's not true. Instead of hanging people from trees, we use the so-called criminal justice system to perform legalized lynchings and take this as a sign of progress. We confuse form with substance. When I embarked on this journey 29 years ago, I was given the choice to either plead guilty to something I didn't do or face the death penalty. I was 25 years old, and the thought that I would have to give up my life represented a great burden to me, a burden that I wasn't so sure I could bear. I didn't fully understand back then that there was something more valuable than simply being alive, although I intuitively understood that existing was not the same thing as living. I also somehow understood that in order to live with myself, I had to be true to myself. And for this, I would have to pay a hell of a price. After I was sentenced to death, I was thrown into solitary confinement. It felt like I was thrown into the middle of the ocean. Try to imagine it. Water as far as the eye can see. And it's just you by yourself floating. That's what solitary confinement is like. In a situation such as this, God ceases to be an abstraction, something that exists apart from who you are and what you do. This is the domain of the drowned and the saved. Life is very real here. And your senses mean more to you than they ever will. What you can see, what you can feel, what you can hold in your hands. These are the only things that matter. And you begin to comprehend that under the circumstances, a piece of driftwood can be God. I mean, the smallest thing can save or change your life. And this piece of driftwood, a book, a dream, a random stranger, has not come to inquire about your particular race or religion. Instead, it has been sent to ask a more basic question. Do you want to live? And tell me, what does it mean to be alive? What are we doing here? If you ask Nazim Hikmet, who's one of my favorite poets, he would tell you that living is no laughing matter, which to me implies that we didn't come here to play, to have fun. And if that be the case, then I can live right here where I am, right here on death row. I needed to know that. More importantly, I needed to know that it's possible to lose everything and still be saved. At some point, I had to be willing to accept that the vastness I was so afraid of was God, which exists inside of me, inside of all of us. To accept this truth, I had to go within and teach myself how not to be afraid. And what exactly did I have to be afraid of anyway? Death? Hell? Well, As James Baldwin once famously said, when one is continually surviving the worst that life can bring, one eventually ceases to be controlled by a fear of what life can bring. I amen his clarity. The arc of the moral universe bends towards justice, we are told. This may very well be. But we, with our own hands and minds, must bend it. We have to do the work. People are dying who could be saved. People are dying.